5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy, and welcome to another session of our Scotland Genealogy Study Group. Now, we are studying with Claire Brisson-Banks, who is a professional genealogist. She worked the British Reference Desk for umpty-ump years and knows her stuff. Claire, you actually have ancestors from Scotland on your husband's side, don't you?
Yes, I do. In fact, and we've actually been there a couple of times and done a lot of research. Stood in the churchyards and the graveyards, and
Mm,
and and
that's the
actually,
thing.
that's amazing.
That's the thing. We also have John Laws, not in Edinburgh, Scotland. Uh, he's just up the way a little bit. And Billy Wallace has joined us. Billy, I remember the days when you were just a shadow of yourself, making posts out there in the community. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for all the emails back and forth. You and Claire have been collaborating quite a bit, I hear. Thank you. And Cousin Russ, thank you for you being here because you're going to bring those comments in from the community as we discuss what the heck we need to do to climb the Scottish part of our family trees. Um, and to begin with, Claire, I think that we are planning today to wrap up our discussion on census records because they go back a little ways. And then you're going to also start with then dabble in birth, marriage, and death, which in the world of England and Scotland, etc., they call them BMDs. So am I on target for that?
You are on target and 100% correct. Yahoo!
Okay. All right. So tell us what you want to wrap up on that census record stuff.
There's a few things I'd like to just wrap up with. The first thing was people. We talked about how World War I, World War II, they affected some of the censuses.
Mm-hmm.
And I did send you, oh, I like what John said. I sent you a link.
Yes.
And a census that was done was to be taken in 1941, but it never happened because of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so they had taken one in 31, but there was a fire. And so they lost it. However, because the census was for Scotland was in Edinburgh, it wasn't affected by the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So they still have theirs. But there was a nice national identity card that was done in 1939, and they give you an example of what it looks like. And so this, I assume at some point, it's not 100 years yet, but this is sort of to replace. It will be instead of the 1941 census.
So I'm trying to compare and contrast what I am familiar with. That's a 75-year-old on many records, but what you're saying is on census records in Scotland, there's going to be a 100-year hold.
Right. There's a 100-year hold on England and Scotland, and they were able to do a loophole that released the 1911 one.
Mm-hmm.
But Scotland didn't. If you remember, England released the 1911, but Scotland did early.
Yes.
But Scotland did not. So the loophole was only for England.
Right.
So there is that 100-year rule. So these won't be released until 2039. But at least we know that there is something there
coming down the pike.
Down the pike, and I just wanted to point that out that there is a backup.
Okay. So I forgot to mention that Billy Wallace is in Glasgow. So we actually have a pretty Scotland-heavy panel here. Thank you. Okay, so we got back as far as 1881.
Right.
What do you want us to do? Do you want me to go show?
Right. Hang on. I'm just going to go and stop. Okay. There are these things called workhouses where individuals who were poor had to stay, and
yes.
John Higginbotham, who's fabulous with the workhouses, they have done transcribed the 1881 censuses for almost all of the parish poorhouses. And I wanted to point that out because sometimes we have family that land there for unknown reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if you go to the home page and then you eventually get into the actual locations
Mm-hmm.
and you pull up a specific one and you drill down, you'll be able to get to that 1881 census for each of those workhouses.
Right. And let's see. I'm getting all of these for London. I'm scrolling down so I can see the map for
So yeah, so
Scotland.
there's Scotland. So see, look, if you go down,
Mm-hmm.
and so if you pick up one from Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
there's okay.
Here I'm
Here we go.
in.
Okay, so pick up one. Just pick up Angus or
All right.
Aberdeen. It doesn't matter.
All right.
And there'll be an 1881 census for that.
Wait, I'm not doing the camera. I'm sorry. I did it totally wrong, guys. That is not Claire's fault. That's Old Mert's fault. Basically, I went from the home page. I went to workhouse locations. I picked Scottish poorhouses. Let's go back there so you can see the list. Oh, come on, guys. All right, I'll start it again. Okay. This is an overview of the website, their homepage. Now I went to workhouse locations.
Yep.
That's next. Then Scottish poorhouses. I wonder what the difference is between almshouses and poorhouses.
That's a good question. But these are all the actual locations. So just pick one.
Okay. And let's see what we get. All right. So there is a wow.
Oh, this is a fabulous site. John, the Mr. Higginbottom has done a tremendous job on putting all this information about the poorhouses on there. So anyone who had anybody connected, and he even shows what they look like today, lots of times. And as you go through, and there are census records. That's what it is today. That's in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually you can find since the 1881 census for a listing of the inmates at that moment.
Oh my heavens. Oh dear, I can't believe the oh my. I was happy with just the maps. and a schematic, that schematic that was at the top of the page.
There you go. Stop right there. Back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. So see, you have the 1881. That's just the staff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the inmates. And then look it down underneath, which is very, very important, is that's where the records are kept.
Okay. At the Aberdeen City Archives or the Northern Health.
Right. Just for that particular one, because each place is different. They have them housed in different locations.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Now, so I mean, I think it's important to know, because sometimes you can't, to try to dig through the 1881 census to find your people may not be as easy as you think, whereas here it takes it right to that particular record source.
All right, let me ask the other members of the panel, what do we know what the difference is between an almshouse and a poorhouse?
Billy just shared a definition.
All right, can you tell us, Billy?
Yep.
Yeah, almshouses were predominantly secular and church-related, and alms was the donation from the congregation to the community at large. There's also a difference between almshouse and poorhouse are quite similar, but there was a big difference between them and the workhouse. The workhouse was more for rehabilitation back to a sober, working, valuable life.
So it could be like not elderly people, not people who were healthy. And it was more orphans. The workhouse. Would they be learning a new thing to do, a new kind of trade? No.
They were put to work. It could be anything from washing, laundry, breaking stones to make grit for roads, rubble.
Picking pitch.
Yeah. Whereas the poorhouse and almshouse, I can cite an example from my own history. My great-grandmother at the turn of the 18th into the 19th century developed cancer of the jaw.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband at the time, when she got too ill, he wasn't able to look after her, so she actually went to the poorhouse for the equivalent of respite care, and
Respite.
she ended her life there.
Oh, you've got a comment from the community, Cousin Russ.
Yeah, I think this is just in line. Christine says houses were more like our nursing and retirement homes and permanently for the elder.
Primarily.
Workhouses were strictly English. Poorhouses were institutions for paupers who needed housing and perhaps care. And I have a question, since we're on this topic. In New England, poorhouses had a lot of documentation backing them up that are becoming available. Does the same thing happen in Scotland?
Yeah, you can find good records. They're not. You can find them usually in the National Archives or local churches. So they're fairly easy to find.
Okay, so you said almshouses are basically church-oriented. They're from the local parish supporting that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Donations. It's the community, the congregation organised it.
Okay. I'm totally getting this. I am so excited that we are having this discussion because what we've got, I mean, I don't know that I have Scottish ancestors, but we've got two people in Scotland, one who's been there a lot. They're all genealogists and they're helping to explain these different things for us. Very good. Is that another comment, Cousin Russ?
No, I just brought that up. It helped you find it.
Okay, Claire. So that's a phenomenal website.
Oh, I think it is. And Peter Higginbottom has done tremendous research and added a lot of resources. And anyone that struggling to try to find their family, they should remember that, because I think it will help them to know that those resources are there. And I think it's fabulous that he put that census record up, because it's really hard to go and find that particular poorhouse or that particular the place in the census record, because of where they're located.
All right, so so you're saying the ancestor is going to be in a slightly different area than where you're normally expecting him to be.
Well, they'll be in the actual census record, but he's pulled them out and just put them all in one location
to make it easy. And I just this is maybe an off-the-wall question, but what percentage of the population would you say were struggling like this? Was it an inordinate amount in that time period? Was it 10%? Are there any kind of figures like that to give us a sense of what we should do? I can see Billy's unmuted his mic.
Oh, sorry. What you'll find is the percentages varied from areas to areas.
Okay.
In the large industrial towns like Glasgow,
yes,
where shipbuilding, iron steel work, railway, locomotive work, it was quite low. But if you went towards an agricultural-based area, it was quite high at times. Another thing to be wary of with the poorhouse records was there's quite often a lot of deliberate lies told to get access to the poorhouse. Yeah.
Oh.
So you'll find women saying that their husbands are dead to get in, and then come out.
Okay, so there's some malingering, as we call it here.
Yeah.
All right, you got a comment from the community, then we'll go on.
Christine continues with her conversation. She says, yes, there was a board of guardians that kept detailed records.
Okay. All right, where are we going next, Claire?
Okay. One of the nice links that, a couple of more links that I'd like to just point out before we, we'll finish up with a couple of these. Let me just get this over to you. This is from the actual transcribers' notes and stuff that an individual gets when they help with transcribing the census records. They're given some instructions. And so if you get onto that.
I will pull it up right now.
All righty.
And I'll zoom in. I'm not quite too good at zooming on my new 8.1 machine because without having every window zoom, and I have 3 monitors, so I don't need that. But anyway, so these are the notes on transcribing.
So like if you look at the top of that real quick,
sure.
It's coming from FreeSense, so people who are actually helping to transcribe the records.
Yes.
They're giving a set of instructions.
Okay.
And so they have to understand, well, what are we doing here? How do we handle this? And so they're helping them to understand where to take this from. And so they give them actual notes on how to do it and how to read it and how to understand what they're doing.
Well, this kind of makes sense because I've done family search indexing, and there are specific indexing rules for each census record group, each record group that we're indexing. And for instance, I'm doing some Freedmen Bureau things, and if we read the whole document and it says his or her, that implies their gender, and so then we can put gender even though it doesn't say, Billy Wallace, male, whatever, because it says Billy Wallace sold his land. Because it says his, we can then enter it. So there are specific odd rules to follow, and let me look more at this.
Yes, if you go scroll down now, you'll see it explains what the things mean. So a single slash after a name indicates that they're not following the members preceding the household, the different symbols and what they mean, so that when you're looking at a census record, you're going to look at it with more understanding of how to read that census.
Oh, so it had to do with breaks of who actually was in the household and who wasn't in the household, and particularly when you're going to different pages. They each had a scheduled number, and they dealt with uninhabited buildings.
Right.
Okay, all right.
So I thought that would be very helpful. Rusty?
I just want to point out that it sounds like what you're telling me, although this was a web page for transcribers, if we are looking at the Scottish census record, we should also go there and look at this page. Is that correct?
Correct, because if you're looking at a record, you assume what's in that record according to the knowledge that you have.
Yes.
Okay, so you may think of that like a census record in America, and it wasn't the same. They have different terminologies, different things. So this is telling you what each of the columns mean,
cool.
so that you can look at it and assess the information with a lot of helpful information.
Here's an example. All dittos and any abbreviations clearly derive from the preceding place name. So if you had H. Cott, following the address Hilton Head, you could expand it as a transcriber or as a reader wanting to know where on earth your ancestors are, that it would be Hilton Head Cott. And I don't know what COT is the abbreviation for.
Cottage.
Cottage. Okay. All righty. And
then down below you'll see there's an occupation.
Yes.
And then there's also the birth county, that because remember, we haven't shown in 1841, and we can easily do that.
Okay.
They had like abbreviations at the end. So Y, NIE, Ireland, England, overseas, unknown and stuff like that. So a person needs to know these things when they look at that to give a proper assessment of the information they're looking at.
What is NOUC? What is that?
OUC.
Yes. I don't know that place.
Maybe Billy can help us with that one.
I'm not too sure myself.
I guess none of us really know that one. I don't think I've seen an O.
While I'm just here and on point of the place and the codes they use, it's also worth pointing out that they didn't stay the same for every census. The instruction booklets were issued for every census.
Yeah.
So that takes into account the changing parishes to districts, changes in counties, the changes in the tax laws for how, like the window tax we talked about
Yep.
the last session, which is why they recorded the windows. That was an evolving thing, so that's reflected in the census and the instruction books.
Look at these. Look at these instructions under occupation, what these abbreviations stood for in the census. HLCW, I would have never guessed that that meant handloom weaver of cotton.
No, I know.
You know, those are very odd things. I don't even know what a pernwinder is, a commune occupation for women in the weaving trade. So it's still English, but it's different terms than I'm accustomed to. This is very important information for me.
And can I put an input there about occupations?
Yes, John.
Oh, goodness me. Someone sat outside the window blasting his horn.
Okay, we're getting the man on the street view of things.
Yeah. Of course, these records were never intended for us to look at. They weren't done for genealogy. They were done for national statistics.
Right, right.
And you will see people having the enumerators written what their householder said, and then he's putting in little notes of his own, or
you know,
in pencil over the top, or it's crossed out, and you have to interpret what was intended.
And I want to tell you about this one. Claire sent me this link just now. This part gets me. And I think they did this in England too, didn't they? Where if a person, you had to like approximate the lowest term of 5 years in which the age is. So if a person is 15 but under 20, you write 15.
Right.
Only in the 1841,
that's
I believe.
That's only 1841.
Okay.
Yeah, from there on, it was approximately accurate.
Okay, except for women who lied about their age.
Absolutely. Young women want to be older, and old women want to be younger.
And I'm just stuck in between. I'm not old and I'm not young.
Then, of course, if you were not where you should have been, as a young man, you were, what's the word, living with somebody that you were pretending to be man and wife, you might quite lie about your age, your occupation, your birthplace, the whole lot, you know.
So those things transcend any. We see that in the United States. We see that in Canada. I suppose they see it in Australia. It's just human nature. I do like that you made the point, John, that all of these records that we're looking at were not made for genealogists.
No.
Just that we're extracting information from it, and we're glad to have access to them when it's possible.
On that basis, you see that we hear all about this 100 years rule, 75 years rule.
Yeah.
What a load of rot. That's what the governments of the day will tell you.
Yes.
But it was never intended.
I know.
It wasn't intended for. It was never intended for the public to look at it in any manner whatsoever.
I know.
So it weren't closed. It's a modern invention.
I hear you. Okay, we have a comment from the community, and it is very important for me to hear what our community members are thinking. Russ?
Yeah, Christine just gave a great link to a great website for old occupations.
All right, do you want to give me that link and I'll pull it up? Well, wait a minute. I've got the community.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll pull it up. Got it. I should have 5 million things open here. But that's what we're here for.
And that's what windows are for.
Yeah. Okay, let me zoom in like I do.
And no tax on those.
All righty. Sounds like a plan. Okay, so this is just old Scottish occupations. Wonderful. So I love it when university students compile things like this, or professors have their students compile these things. So if we click, we could actually get in and look at the entire list.
Right.
Wow.
And that link will be in the actual spreadsheet that we've done.
Right. Let's talk about the spreadsheet while we're on that topic.
Just put it at the bottom of the spreadsheet.
Yeah, just put it at the bottom.
I will add that in. I haven't done occupations yet. I did add a lot of stuff.
That's down at the bottom.
Let me talk to y'all about this record selection. These family search. They're not even all family search. Remember that we are working off the same principle that we use with our beginning genealogy people. We had the record selection table, and this is directly from FamilySearch.org, which is one of my other links around here somewhere. Another tab are the family search links, and then we have the record links. And Claire and our good Billy Wallace have been adding to this list. And so if you downloaded this the first day of this series, this study group series, you're going to miss these abbreviations. And we decided just during the green room this morning, we're going to add a column here that says date added. So any new things, you'll be able to come in here, check to see if there's anything new, and then download the latest version of this. And but right now you've categorized them a little bit. We'll have to talk to you about this, Claire. You added, but let's get back to our topic of
the census.
Yes. And
okay, so I sent you a link. That last link I sent you was the directions that the enumerator received before he proceeded to do the actual census. And so I think, so having the information on what the transcriber sees to understand so they can transcribe, it's also important to understand what the enumerator, what their mindset was. And so those are the numerator's instructions. And so it's helpful to know that too.
All right, and this has helped me in my U.S. Census research, so I would be looking for these kinds of instructions.
And I believe they probably are available. We just never pulled them up.
Yes, well, I've found them for U.S., but it was from the U.S. Census website, the actual government website, whereas this is from Free Census or Free Send Scotland, and it was part of RootsWeb that it got pulled into Ancestry when Ancestry purchased them. Okay. All right. So give us an example. Let's go looking at some more census records. I'm excited.
Okay, so we have to look at the last two. Let's see, we ended with an 1871 census. So let's pull in the 61 census.
Okay.
And let's see.
While she's doing that and giving me the link, Cousin Russ, thankfully, has been adding all this to you, those of you in the community, so you have the link. And that's the advantage of being in the community, is that you can comment if you've got questions. There's the enumerator instructions. There's old occupations. Thanks for adding that. Here's the record selection table as it appeared in the Family Search Wiki. And we suggest that you look at the Family Search Wiki for any state or country that you're working on, because it will include archives and libraries and record groups that are part of Family Search's collection and those that are not part of their collection. I see Claire's kind of bottoming out here, Russ. We may have to pull her back in. While we're waiting for her to get back here, no problem.
I'm here.
She's there. Okay. She's got it screened up with a census record.
Oh, okay, good. I can't see it. All right, now I can see it. All right, so we're looking at 1861. Okay.
Now you'll notice that there's not much change between them and the 81 and the 91. And the reason I think it's good to see that not all censuses come in clear and crisp. This one here that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And notice that there are the slash marks in some of the abbreviations that we just learned about.
Yeah.
And so here's
Wonder what condition means. Oh, married or unmarried?
Married or unmarried. So you wouldn't. And notice it's blank for these because they're scholars. They're in school.
Okay, little kids. Yeah.
Little children, and so then it just tells you where they were born, and then over here. So this is just a simple 1861.
Okay, and this is Scotland's people right now?
Yep, this is the citation for Scotland's people.
Yes. Okay.
And then the other one we wanted was in 1851.
Yes.
And you'll notice there's not much different until we hit the 1841. Let me bring that over. So
okay.
Here is, you'll have to excuse.
These are from your personal collection, I see.
This one here, I believe I scanned it.
Yes.
And so I highlighted it, but it's still, but look at, there's less information in the 1851.
Yes. Okay.
And so this just
but I like that, where born. I love
does say
that.
where. And this is really the first time that they ask that question.
Okay, so that's pretty cool.
Right, and they also give you the relationship to the head of family in the 1851. The 1841, they do not.
Okay,
but
do they still list every person in the household in 1840?
Yeah, we'll bring one up.
Claire,
okay, so that.
Claire,
yep.
you said everyone in the family. Do you mean family or household?
Everyone in the household. Thank you for
the
correction.
Comment, yeah.
Because you could have a servant, you could have you could have a boarder, anybody that's in that household at
mother-in-law. Yeah. Boy, so 1851 adds where born, and that's pretty significant. In the U.S., 1850 is the first census to show every show the name of every person in a household that is, including free persons of color. Slaves, however, would not show up. Okay.
All right.
Got it. Okay.
The 1841.
Okay.
So notice that.
Oh, it's really getting small. Yeah.
Right. So then this is where you got the Y. The Y, that means they were born in that county.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's very, very small, and they don't give a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So they just list who was in that house.
Okay. So Banks, that's your husband's family, isn't it?
That's one of the family members. Yep.
Yeah. He was a Mason. Interesting.
Yep.
And then there's that linen, WLW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have to go look at that little list to get.
Right.
And I would do that. I would use that to kind of guide me, because occupations were very important,
yes.
and helping you to understand where they might be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that would be the 1841, and we already. I believe I'll switch the screen back to you.
Okay. Good.
And I believe we talked about in the record selections table, we provided a section there for any of the earliest censuses from 1801 to 1831. They would have to use that PDF file to order a copy if it's available.
All right. So here we are, and we're looking. Let me pull up on my screen. This is your outline.
Right.
And so these earlier records, let's see, I don't have
up
it.
Top.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
The first one.
Okay. So these are our census. They're not official annual census. Tell me about these early census things.
Okay. Well, if you pull up the PDF, it tells you that.
Yeah.
It tells you exactly what's in them. So this is a list of examinable persons in that time period.
Okay.
And so it just gives a list of names and people in one place at one time.
And a population list. So, all right, people, okay, abstract of personal names in estate rentals of this particular place. So if you have a person in this particular place.
That's important.
And you can't find them. I mean, you've heard that they're from this area. We're wanting to look for census records or birth, marriage, and death records. We're not seeing it. Now we're starting to move into estate records, which is another entire subject out of the purview of our discussion today. Is that correct? I mean, I've got people that are in England that are tenants and they're paying rent, and so the manor rolls are things I'm looking at. So here, this has to do with a similar thing, the estate rentals. So Interesting.
Right. And so I think what they're doing is they're taking the term census as in the very broadest possible sense of a list of people in one place at one point in time.
Okay. And tax records. Yes, we use tax records here in the United States for substitute census records for those time periods earlier than, and also they're paying taxes annually, typically. Do you pay taxes historically? Oh, you have a hearth tax and a poll tax and things? Okay. Sounds interesting.
Yep. So see, if you go just to see that first one at the top there, we just went right by it. It said that it was a account of the population of the town and parish. So see, in this case, that particular one took a population census.
All right. So if I wanted to access this 1801 account of population of this place in 1800, this code here is the code I would have to use, and this is all from Scotland's People's Centre Library. So is this a Scotland's public library, their national library? Tell me about that, Billy.
It's not the National Library. National Library is separate. The Scotland's People's Centre was set up. It's the old Register Office. It started in Edinburgh, where they kept all the original birth, marriage, death, census records. And when you wanted to see a record, you had to physically go to Edinburgh to get it. Then, quite a while back, they decided to digitise all the records. So they created the Scotland's People's Centre to hold the digitised area. And you can visit there. Now, the benefit with that is they've actually put one in the Mitchell Library in Glasgow that you can go and visit, and you get access to the same records that's held in Edinburgh, or you can do it through the website, which we've just put up. Another quick thing.
So is this centre, is this why they called scotlandspeople.gov.uk?
Yeah, it's part of the government.
Something just moved. That's interesting.
A quick thing, just to mention, Claire mentioned if you get a poor scan, if you download a census or a birth, marriage, death record, and you find it's a poor quality scan, because you've paid for that certified digital copy, Scotland's people offer a service where if you think it could be rescanned to a higher quality, they will do it for you, unless the document's in such a poor state that they can't physically
have been destroyed. Oh, they're just too fragile. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm enjoying learning about this stuff.
Okay, so Pat, on that form, I think I mentioned how to get those records.
Okay.
Just quick before we wrap up the end of censuses.
Okay. So you've got this transcript. You know that you need, let me share my screen, and then help me a little bit. So here we are looking at that list, and partway through we found that item we wanted to order. But you're saying back here there's directions?
Right.
Oh, right here.
Right there.
Okay, so we request the copies by sending an email to enquiries, which is spelled differently.
Yep.
Okay, let me zoom in just a little, make that a lot easier. So, and you made that as an extra column here, right next to where it's available. Okay, I noticed that a number of census records for Scotland are available at Ancestry, and I wanted to mention this part. When I was looking, we'll close this great list. When I was looking at Scotland census as far as family search is concerned, this wiki is not complete. They talk about the dates taken and things, and they direct you from 1801 to 1831 to that library. And then for 1841 through 1891, that's microfilm. And they're giving you the link directly to, here's the 1860 catalog entry for microfilm. That's a little frustrating. They're not giving us a link to the digital copies. Let's go a little farther. They're saying these, the 1901 and 1911, you can get from Scotland's People. Okay, there's indexes. Then they're telling you ancestry.co.uk. Well, I know for a fact that I can get to Scottish census records through myancestry.com, which is just ancestry.com. That's it. There's Find My Past, there's Free Send, and these are the surname indexes and street names indexes. All right, so let me show you what I did, folks. I had this discussion with Claire in the green room. I just love it. I said, I'm going to go to the Ancestry catalog. And what I did, I'll start it from scratch. I'm at myancestry.com. It's not .uk. And I'm putting in Scotland as the title of what I want to look at. This was under search and then card catalog. And then I'm going to put census here as a keyword. And I'm going to tell it search. So see, I'm not doing this from within a ancestry tree. And remember that Ancestry's Library Edition is available at over 4,500 family search centers throughout the world. So then we have access to these census records, and I just love how things get sorted, not in numerical or alphabetical order. But anyway, and then they start with parish records as a substitute, including extracted parish records. Let's see what happens if we click, let's just say the 1841 census. All right, and it is part of their collection. It's not where it will take us to Family Search. But does Family Search have Scottish records of census?
Yes, they do, but because of contracts, they do not have them grouped in families. So my recommendation would be, if you were going to look for them, I would use Ancestry for the 1841 through the 1901 to locate your family. Then if you want to see the original record, I suggest you go to Scotland's People, because now you know where they are, and you can narrow down the search so that you get the best amount. You use your funds, because it costs money, so that you can go straight to the record. So if you find them first here, then you can go find the original in Scotland's People.
Oh, so what you're saying is these are indexes that I'm looking at?
No, they're transcriptions.
Transcriptions. So, okay, you've got something from the community, Russ.
Right in line with what you're talking about. Christine must do some Scottish research. She says digital copies of the images are only available at Scotland's People website.
Okay, I get it. So they're transcriptions, which is more than just an index of names.
Right, and that's what I was saying. And the nice thing about it is that they're in family groups. You have mom, dad, and the children, except for the 1841. You'll have the people that were actually in that home.
In the home.
In the home. And any of the other census, the people that were in the home. Whereas if you pull them up on Family Search and you look for John Banks on Family Search, you're just getting the one entry. You don't know who else is around him.
So that makes it impossible to triangulate, because part of determining the difference between this John Banks and that John Banks, who could be in the same area, and they're all named after their great-grandfather, is to see who the other people are. What's the wife's first name? Do they have two sons and a daughter in that birth order kind of thing?
Right. And so that's why I recommend that they use the transcriptions that have been done that are in Ancestry, and then if they need the actual record, then go look it up in Scotland's People.
All right, so we've got 15 minutes, and our next plan was birth, marriage, and death. And we have covered a lot of ground today, dealing with almshouse and poorhouses and workhouses and all that, and looking at the census things. Could you introduce the subject of BMDs, birth, marriage, and death records, please?
Yes, I will. Of course, the birth, marriages, and death records are pretty much every country has them because that's where people are born. And of course, with Scotland, the first set of records that's well known is what they call the old parish records. But before we do that, let's go bring this little link up. Let me bring this up here.
Okay, and I'll go grab it.
Yeah, there you go. Let's talk about that for a minute because I think that will help us a little bit.
Okay.
Scotland is broken up into different numbers. If you notice the census, you may not have noticed that the censuses have numbers too, and this explains it. Unlike any other country in the British Isles, each parish in Scotland is assigned a number. And those numbers are determined by arranging of parishes in alphabetical order within the county.
Okay. All right.
So,
tricky.
That is tricky. And then numbering them consecutively throughout all of Scotland. So that the number. So we provide a list, and here's the list.
Okay.
So if you know your family is from Fife,
yes,
you need to know what number that is.
Okay.
So that way, that helps you when you're going to look at the records to kind of understand those numbers.
So OPRs are old parish records?
Different people say parish, some people say parochial, but
yes.
they are the records of the baptisms, marriages, and burials for Scotland, going back to the mid-1500s, but remember, it's just Church of Scotland. So if your family were Baptist or other religions, they won't be, the chances of them being in those records are slim.
You know, that's what got me, is the fact that when we're dealing with a place, I'm thinking of Scotland, it has to be a beautiful country if 2 out of all of us on the panel actually live there and are remaining there. But I think of it as small. I mean, Scotland would fit easily in the state of Texas, which is just one of our states here in the U.S. And I'm not meaning to be do any elitism stuff here. I'm just saying that my perception as a U.S. researcher, then having to go back to my Irish roots or my Scottish roots, which I don't know that I have, or my English roots or my Welsh roots, I think of that as a state. And I have to realize that those parishes and counties, the counties with parishes in them, is really important. And that you don't seem to have that separation of church and state as far as record keeping that we have so fiercely defended here in the United States. And I need to get over that so that I can actually dig down and get into the research. Claire, tell me I'm going bonkers over that.
No, well, I think the hardest thing is to get used to the fact that when we look at, in America, when we look at parishes, we think of churches.
Yes.
But in the UK, parishes could be civil.
So
and that's a hard concept for us.
Unless you're from Louisiana.
Or Maryland.
See, he does have an opinion occasionally.
I'm so glad he has an opinion.
I love it. Okay, so we're back to our screen share, and this number helps us look things up. I remember working at our local family history center when a huge collection of microfiche was sent to us. We didn't order it. Salt Lake sent us the OPRs for Scotland. And we put little dividers in so that it was easier for each county. And then we had to have a list like this so people could find the right parish within the county.
Now, if you scroll up, you'll see they have on this same site, they have a county map, which is really helpful.
All right, I'll pull it up.
This is the same county map that is in Genealogy, too.
Okay.
So, but it's a good map to know that it's there, because this will help you to narrow down if you know the counties.
Yeah. So Aberdeen is 1. Where the heck is Aberdeen?
Right there where it's yellow in the middle.
Okay, this big spot here.
So remember what it said, that they put them in alphabetical order by once they were within a county, the numbers.
Okay, all right. So I'm not. Okay, I'm getting this. It's sinking in. You can see the wheels of my brain are moving slowly, but surely, slowly but surely. Okay, so. So the county and then these smaller jurisdictions known as parishes in Scotland, these are not, so a parish in Scotland is not a church. It's like an area.
Yep.
Okay.
They do have church parishes as well as civil parishes.
Oh.
I know, it makes it so confusing.
All right. But you know what? That's just to keep us outsiders out, isn't it, Billy and John?
Just to make it more confusing.
Go ahead.
What you will find is if if you're hunting for a street, have a look at the top of the buildings, especially schools, because they will have the parish name on them.
Okay.
Which is a good clue when you're in a city to find what parish you're in.
So you mean if you're at Google Maps?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to pull it up while you're talking about it. Google Maps. Let me go do that. We did that the other day. We had a great green room afterwards, didn't we? All right, so I'm going to type in Scotland. Just a minute. Let me change.
How about maybe Scotland schools? Is that what you said, Billy?
Yeah. If you go to put in Govan Parish School.
Okay, just a minute.
G-O-V-A-N.
Parish School.
G-O-V-A-N.
Yes. School.
Yeah, you've got Govan.
It's A-N. It's A-N.
Okay, I will do it. In Scotland.
Change the E to an A in that first
one. All right,
word.
I'm working on it slowly. Thank you for helping me. All right, let's see what we get. In Glasgow. Okay, so now we're going to add the street view, just for the heck of it.
Yeah, and if you have a look at Govan Parish Church, if you actually go into street view, you'll see the church should have Govan Parish above it.
All right, let me get the little guy so I can do street view. Where do I want him? Here is the street, or is this the street?
That's the street that you're on. If you come straight down the church, there's a large path. Turn round, rotate.
Yeah. There's the church.
Right. You want to go left.
Go left. Go left.
Yeah, and then put that driveway in front of you into the church.
Okay. But anyway, my purpose in coming here, let me go out of street view. You're saying that when we are here and looking at it from above on a map, how do we know it's in what parish? Explain that to me again.
On the church itself, somewhere it will say Govan Parish, and the school that it sponsored will have Govan Parish School above around about the main entrance.
Okay, let me get there. So there's the parish itself. Which part is the school?
The school's no longer there. It's been demolished.
Oh, okay. All right. So it was an odd example. But this is pretty cool, and we definitely like doing this sort of thing. And grabbing a street view of the home where an ancestor lived is a good idea.
It is.
I will tell you one funny thing, though, guys, while we're looking at this with the street view. I typed in that locality, Govan Parish School. Let me just click on it, see what it does. There's their high school now. But when you pull this little yellow fellow, that's the street view. I'm going to put it on the street right here. See, you can see I've got this little guy. This is thanks to Google. Now I'm actually looking at that high school. and I can zoom around left and right cursor movement keys to get go forward and back. But I will tell you a funny little story about Street View. I was having Mr. Mert do this sort of thing, and he got the street view of a house that he lived in New Jersey, and he swore that this was the house he lived in as a child. But his older sister, he always says his much older sister, said that's the neighbor's house. The reason you're familiar with it is we would play in the yard next door and you would look at this house because that was the neighbor's house. And so it's good to get a second opinion on exactly which house is which. Okay, all right. So here we are on birth, marriage, and death. And we've got this concept of you have counties, and in them you have parishes, and there are also church parishes.
Yep. And so there's all different types of parishes.
So be aware of that.
That's all we're doing is pointing that out. So when they go into looking for a place, it helps them to narrow down their search a little better.
All right. Billy, what's your favorite phrase for what BMDs are known as?
Oh, hatch, match, and dispatch.
I think we do that here.
I saw John type that earlier too.
Yeah, I think we do that here too. So there's a lot of similarities. Go ahead, John or Billy.
Yeah, I was going to say on Claire's point, if you can't find them in the old parish register, the Roman Catholic Church held separate records.
They did.
To the old parish records, and there's also the third set of records that are very similar to parish are the non-conformist records, and that would include like the Baptists, the Quakers, the Wee Free, so on and so forth.
All right. These types of records predate the official birth, marriage, and death records.
Right. They go back into the earliest ones are, I think, late middle 1500s.
Okay.
But they're not complete. They'll tell you they're not complete at all. If you're starting with that's as far back as we go. But if we start with just today and work our way back, they have what they call statutory records, and those are available at Scotland's People.
I have seen those. Let's zoom in here on Scotland's People. I'll change the camera. This is logical to me because it's very similar to American research. The research we do here in the U.S., they aren't called statutory. They're called here's the statutory registers over here, access to birth, marriage, and death records. But here they're called vital records. So that's a different term, but we can handle it. It's like checkers and chess on the same game board, okay? The same game board is we're going to keep track of births, marriages, and deaths. And in Scotland, they call them statutory registers instead of vital records. And the same concept works, Claire, I think, because here in the U.S. we start with ourselves, work backwards, and we're looking at public vital records.
Right.
When those weren't kept in the area, then we look for church records to see if they've survived.
That's right.
Can I put an input?
Pardon, yes, John, what do you want to say?
You know, when you were looking at Street View, I use Street View to look at the premises, the addresses that are on documents, to identify the social standing of the people involved. An address, when you don't know the area, an address is an address. But if you go look at it, actually look at the building, I mean, it may be a tenement or it may be just, but in country areas, again, I know you see the things as they are now, but it gives you a good indication as the type of property it was, you know, in olden times.
Yeah, unless there's a new high-rise apartment where there were little tenements before.
Well, stuck a freeway through.
I hear you. Okay, well, Claire, I just happened to zoom in on a birth record. I know we've only got about a minute and a half to go, but we're going to then go forward with studying in more detail what kind of records, what kind of information we can find on these public records of birth, marriage, and death known as statutory records.
Right. They go up to the more current times, and this is the earliest one that's available. And this one doesn't have as much information as the later records do.
So in England,
this is a good way to start, though.
In England, it's 1837 when public vital records began to be kept. In Scotland, it's 1855.
Right.
Okay, good. You got a comment from the community before we go, Cousin Russ?
I do. Rachel says, I love Scottish records. The fact that they have the parents' marriage, death, date, and location on the child's birth is priceless.
Oh, man, now I wish I had Scottish ancestors for sure. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, well, Claire and Billy and John and Russ, thank you. I'm getting all choked up as I normally do. It's just what is. But we've learned a lot today. I'm somewhat confused by the use of the term parish, but I'm going to remember that we have a similar thing in Louisiana and Maryland, as Russ is saying. I'm not aware of it in Maryland, but I don't know everything. Anyway, I'm learning more about Scottish research. Thank you very much. Thank you to the community for your comments. Let's keep those cards and letters coming. Make posts, ask questions. Those are the very things we want to answer in our upcoming study group sessions. So we're going to be here next week, and then we will be dealing with a break because I'll be up at Orcas Island on a family reunion vacation. And other than that, I guess there's nothing much to say, but on behalf of Cousin Russ, I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.